how I make Kyojiro Rengoku's sword guard out of martensitic stainless steel and how it's completely ready to go on the katana. So I just ordered a piece of steel, a rectangular piece, and I drew out my pattern onto the steel. Now I'm getting ready to cut it out using a jeweler saw because it's got a lot of curves, so I cannot do it with a hacksaw. This ended up being really difficult, and in fact I couldn't even finish it off using a jeweler saw because since it's martensitic it's really tough. So all the jeweler saw blades were just snapping before it even touched the metal. I ended up drawing a few straight lines that I could use as a guide so that I could cut it with an angle grinder. This will get rid of the bulk of the material, and then I can find another method later on how to get rid of the rest of the material and cut around the entire pattern. Cutting this sword guard was by far the longest out of all the steps I needed to do to make the sword guard. Even longer than shining it and making the hole in the center. This took longer than all of it, even whilst using an angle grinder. Here, as you can see, I made quite a lot of cuts and removed a lot of the material. Well, now it's getting too close to its final shape, so I need to start drilling around the curves. I found out that I will be able to use the drill bit to drill around the curves, and then I will be able to cut it out by hand. This will just get rid of the arc, that way I won't have to use a jeweler saw or a fret saw or anything like that. It will just get rid of the most difficult part. I'm just going to have to mark some points in the stainless steel so that I know where to drill and so that the drill bit doesn't wander. So I've got a center punch right there that I'm using to mark the holes, and I'm going to be using a series of drill bits to enlarge it to its final size, to its final diameter, and then I'll be able to cut it out. This also was quite difficult because the drill bits were overheating and I had to use a lot of oil to cool it down and to make the cut a lot smoother and easier. Alright, so I've gotten the holes drilled out. Now I need to cut them out. Unfortunately, the fret saw and the jeweler saw blades won't even touch the stainless steel, as I already tried. So I'm going to cut along straight with the hacksaw and then try sanding down those areas. Sanding down those areas after I cut out most of those parts. And hopefully it will work. If not, I'll have to try and think of something else. I've got to clamp it down inside the vise and then I can start cutting it. So as I found out, using a hacksaw was the best course of action because I'll just be able to cut all the straight lines, won't have to worry about the arcs until later on, and it's quite quick since it's just a normal hacksaw. I will have to worry about grinding the arcs later on, but it's not really much of a problem since I won't be needing to use the fret saw or the jeweler saw. So I've cut along the first straight already with the hacksaw, and that opened up another opportunity. So I was able to get the angle grinder out, and I was able to remove even more material, which will reduce the amount of sanding that I've got to do. And that's what I'm going to be doing as steps along the way. I'll be cutting out and then grinding and then cutting out and then grinding, and it will make my job a lot easier. You know, I've nearly finished this. That's one cut done. This is the second cut almost finished. Then I've got two more and a lot of sanding to get it reshaped up, which is pretty much what I had to do with the brass one. But the brass was a lot easier since it's a much softer metal. This is stainless steel and it's really hard to work with. There's the second part done. Now I just got to clean it up, which is what I've been doing off camera. Once I've made the cuts, I've just been rounding that off with the sanding machine and finishing off those areas. I'm going to do the neatening up and the actual cleaning section on camera though, because that's the most important part. So the angle grind has been gotten out again and it has taken off a lot more material. So I'm just using the hacksaw to cut some more straights and removing a lot more material. As you can see, it's taking shape now and I'm just finishing it off, making sure that it's as close as I can get it without cutting into the lines. So I found out an area over here where I can just use the biggest drill bit that I've got, 14mm drill bit, and I will be able to remove a huge section of that arc. This is a lot easier because it's from a straight, so as soon as I cut out that arc, it has two straights. I'll be able to either cut that out with a hacksaw, or I can cut that out with the angle grinder. It works really well. So I just have to go to a bigger drill bit, and then I will be able to start drilling it out. This seemed really sketchy though, because it was shaking and rattling around a lot, and I had to use a lot of oil because it was really smoking. But it ended up going all the way through, and I was able to start cutting it out with the angle grinder. So I just gotten the angle grinder back out, and I'm cutting along those two straight lines, and then I will be able to start finishing the shaping off, and then I will be able to start sanding and finishing the sword guard. Back to the hacksaw again, and this is actually an arm workout. It's really difficult to cut through all of this stainless steel. It ended up getting so hot that you can actually see discoloration on the steel from the constant use of the angle grinder. There I ended up stitching many drill holes so that I'll be able to cut along that arc. It made it a lot easier, and then I'm using a much smaller hacksaw, and I'm just going to be going along there. Now I've got the center area, which I'm going to be drilling out, and that center area is where you would slot the tang through the sword guard and attach it. So I'm just going to be doing a series of holes along there so that I can start getting ready to drill it out and finish it off and make it a perfect hole, perfect for a katana if I ever decide to make one. This is just a 4mm drill bit that I'm using, and I will be able to just drill a series of holes, just like stitching almost, and then I'll be able to get rid of all of the excess material on the inside. This is the best way that I could think of doing it. In fact, I didn't think of any other method of getting rid of all of the material on the inside. So this ended up working, and now I just had to find out a way to get rid of the material on the inside. It's a lot easier said than done. So I'm just using a file, and I'm going to get my cold chisel out, and I'm going to start hitting it in between those center holes and then trying to remove the mass of material. This didn't work. I don't even know why I thought it would work. And I ended up getting a jeweler saw. This also didn't work, and I ended up trying to use a fret saw, which also didn't work. So I decided to use some more extreme methods by getting an air compressed angle grinder, and I started clearing out the material on the inside. But that also didn't work because it ended up removing material that was outside the width of the tang. So I had to think of another method to do that. But as I was thinking of methods to do that, I just decided to start shaping it roughly on the sander and getting it to shape. So as you can see, that it looks really messy. Now I just got a needle file, and I'm going to be filing it flat. This ended up taking hours out of the workshop, and in the workshop I was just filing until I could get it as flat as I could. And it still looks really messy, but I've just got to do even more sanding, even more shaping, even more grinding until I've got it to its final shape. So that is a huge chunk that I was able to remove with the angle grinder and the hacksaw, and then I can round it off and make it more uniform with the rest of the shape of the sword guard. This was quite easy to do, and it's gotten its most general shape now. So I'm able to start shaping it completely and start rounding it off using the sanding machine and using other methods to finish off shaping it and making it a lot shinier. Now I've gotten a Dremel, and I'm clearing out the inside area right there and making it a lot better. And there you can see it's looking really good. It's a lot shinier now. It's gotten rid of a lot of the imperfections in the steel, and it ended up turning out really nicely. I've just got to do a lot more cleaning up on it, and I need to buy some more sandpaper that I can use to finish it off and make it a lot more shiny, like the brass sword guard that I made. So this is P40 grit sandpaper. This is just the quickest way to remove all of the scratches and scuffs on the steel. P80 done. Starting to look a bit nicer. However, this disc was P60 and it's really rough, significantly rougher than this one. So I'm not too sure if 60 grit will, if 80 or 120 grit will get rid of the deep scratches from here, which was a problem I initially had with the brass one as well. So I need to look for something a bit more gradual. So this is P60 I think, or P40, and this is P60 or the 80. Yeah, that's P80. So I need to look for something more gradual, get rid of the bigger scratches. It's just a whole lot of sanding, so I'm just going to show a few clips. It'll take me hours, so I'll show a few clips and I'll show you until I have reached the 120 grit sandpaper and I go and buy the other sandpaper. I don't know what happened there, just sanding this, and there's a little pull, random pull from the sanding machine, and the sanding disc actually came off. It just came off. I believe maybe one of those points just got caught inside one of the holes, and then as it's twisting, it ripped it off and then disconnected from the sanding machine. That's what it looks like. But yeah, and this is my last 220 discs paper, so I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I'm just gonna have to go buy some more. Unfortunately, the sandpaper is going to take a really long time to arrive, so I'm just going to have to end the video right here. Don't worry, I'll be making a follow-up video in a few weeks time, and I will be showing you this finished project. So make sure you subscribe with notification bell on so that you know exactly when that video is going to be coming out. In the meantime, you can watch my previous video where I make this brass sword guard. So until next time,